Hello and welcome back. In our last video, we saw how to compress individual files using the gzip command. In this video, we're going to introduce a way to compress multiple files together into a single archive or compress entire directories using the tar command. So I'm going to open up a terminal here and let's see, I'm going to change into my documents, and we had made this directory here, this test directory, which was going to hold some files we made. And so I can just quickly look at them. File 1 was just a bunch of gobbledygook. I think file 2 was the results of our processes that we were running, yep. And then if I do file 3, it was the results of an IP command to look at some of our network interfaces. We want to compress all of these files, and so we'll do a long listing. We can see the size of the files. We want to compress them into a single archive using the tar command. And so let's start by looking at the help documentation here for tar. So if I scroll way up to the top, I see some examples. It looks like tar tac CF, tar tac TVF, tar tac XF. First thing that we note is that the tac F option seems to be used in all of the examples. This first example is pretty great. It looks like we can use tar to create an archive of multiple files together, which is exactly what we wanted to do in our last video and couldn't do. So we just type tar tac CF, and then it looks like the name of the archive that we want to create, and then these are our files, right? Foo and bar are the files that we're going to archive. We can list the files in an archive, and then we can also extract all the files in an archive. If we scroll down, we're going to look at some of our operation modes. And so we're going to give special attention to tac C for creating an archive, tac T for listing the contents of an archive, and then tac X for extracting the files from an archive. If we scroll down a little bit more, we see our tac F option, which we paid attention that it was in all of our examples. That's going to allow us to set an archive file, and so we always want to include that. And lastly, if we scroll down just a little bit more here, we see some compression options. And so we see things like bzip2 with tac I, tac J giving us XZ, and tac Z gives us the gzip compression, which is what we looked at in our last video. Now, we said that there's many different compression types, each having its own benefit and drawbacks. We can use tar to create an archive and then use these options here to compress the archive. And so we can compress it in different formats. So I'd suggest messing around with these different formats and seeing which compression types works best for the given file that you're trying to compress. Okay, so let's clear the screen. We'll do an ls tac L. Here's our files. Let's make an archive of the files that we had made in our previous video. So in order to do this, I'm going to type tar tac CF. The C, it means we want to create the archive, and then we need to have the tac F here. And now we're going to type the name of the file. So we'll do, we'll call it filearc.tar. So filearchive.tar, and now I have to list the file names that I want to include in the archive. So I want to include file 1, file 2, and file 3. So when I click enter and I long list, it looks like we've got our archive file right here. And so if I do file on the file type, file arc, it tells me it is a tar archive. Perfect. So now if I want to list what's in this archive, I can use the tac T option. So I'll do tar tac TF filearc.tar, and it tells me what's in there. I can also pass the verbose option, so I'm going to pass the V for verbose, and it's going to give me a little bit more information, like privileges, the owner, the group, the size, etc. If I leave the F flag off, it's going to give me an error. And it says right here, refusing to read the archive contents, are you missing the tac F option? And so we want to make sure, again, that we always include that tac F option. So now that we have this archive, let's move the archive into a different directory. Let's move it into our documents folder. So to move the archive, I'll just type move file arc, and then I have to give the absolute path to where I want to move it. So I'm going to move it to root home mic documents. And actually, let me go back for a second. If you don't know the path of where you want to move it to, all you got to do is go to your location. So I'm going to go cd up dot to go up one. This is where I want to move it, and so I'll just type pwd, and I get the absolute path right here. So and that's one of the ways that we can always find this. So let's go back into our test folder, and let's move file archive or arc.tar, and we're going to move it to root home mic documents. All right, it looks like it's out of that file, or out of that directory. And so if we go up one, and let's clear the screen, there we see it. We see our archive right here. If we want to extract this archive now, all I'll do is call tar, and I'll call the TAC-XF options, X to extract, and then I'll type the name of my archive. So I want to extract file arc.tar. And so when I do this and click enter, it looks like all three files were extracted. So this is perfect. And if we long list them, it looks like they are the same file sizes, and I can cat them now to the screen, right? And we can print them out. One of the things you might be sitting there saying is, hey, it sure looks like this archive, when we made this tar archive, it's bigger than our original files together. And so maybe we really didn't compress it at all. We're going to get to that in a bit. But remember, we can change our compression options with tar, right? There were all of those. Let's see, tar, tac help. We had some of these compression options. So let's pass one of the compression option flags. Let's pass the tac-z flag with the tar command to compress it using gzip. Oops, closed my terminal out. Let me get back to where I was. CD documents. Okay. So if I type ls-tac-l, we can see all of our file sizes. Let's make another archive now with these files, but let's pass the tac-z flag. So I'm going to do tar tac-c for creating the archive, Z for compressing it using gzip, and we'll pass the tac-f flag. And I'm going to call this file arc.tar.gz. So I'm giving it the .gz for gzip extension. And then I'll give it file 1, file 2, and file 3. All right. So it looks like we've got those files there. Let's call the file command to just see how these things are differing. So I'll call it on my tar file. It tells me it's a tar archive. If I call .gz, it now tells me it's a gzipped compressed data, and it gives me my file size. So they are, in fact, different files. And if we look here, if we do a tac-l for the long listing, when we pass the tac-z flag to compress the archive, it shrinks it down completely. Let's see what happens if we call gzip on our original archive now, right? So here, we did it all in one step. We made the archive and then we zipped it. Here, we just made the archive. Now, let's separately zip it using gzip. So I'll gzip file arc.tar. Oh, it already exists. Do you wish to overwrite it? Yeah, we can, I guess. Sure. And so now if I do the long listing, you can see the file size is changed just a bit. So that was a little confusing. I apologize because the names were the same. Why don't I recreate my original archive? So do tar tac czf, and I'm going to call this new arc and .tar.gz, and we'll do this with file 1, file 2, and file 3. Okay, so we made the archive and we zipped it. And so if you look here, here is the archive that we zipped with tar, and here is the archive we made and then zipped with gzip. They're almost identical in size. Wonderful. So, you know, when you make your archive, you can zip it right ahead or you can zip it later on. Now, let's take... let's move out of this directory now. So let's see. Let's cd into our home directory. All right, so there's our home directory. And let's say I want to make an archive of everything that appears in maybe my documents directory. I can do that, compress the whole directory by just calling. Let's actually get up here. I can call tar tac C for create. We'll zip the directory, so Z using gzip, F. And let's do the documents folder. So I'll call this documents.tar.gz. And I want to zip the documents folder. All right, and so if we look here, here is our zipped file. Wonderful. Let's move this to my desktop now. So I'm going to do move documents.tar.gz, and I'm going to move it to root home mic desktop. And when I put that there, hey, look at that. The icon appears right here on my desktop now. All right, let's see what we have in the archive before we uncompress it, right? That's a good check. You should check to see what's in here before you just open it and all on your desktop. So we'll do tar tac tvf. So T to list, V is verbose, and then we'll say, oh, I think I have to move to my desktop first, right? Yeah, let's move to our desktop. So there's our archive. We'll do tar tac tvf, and it lists everything that is in the archive. Perfect. So I'm comfortable extracting this all. So I'm going to extract this here. So to extract this, I'll say tar tac x to extract xf, and then the name is documents. And if we look there, it has extracted our folder. So I can move into this folder now, documents, and I should be able to, so we see all of our files here, right? I should be able to make changes to these files. So let's do nano file, is it file 3? I should be able to just make some changes. So I'm going to delete all this. Or let's just delete the last few lines. So I'm going to delete my wireless interface from this file. That's good enough. And I'll save it. And so those changes have been made in this file, but if I go back to my actual documents folder and look, and I can't file, not file 4. If I look at the original file, it's all still intact. So that's great. So we have two, unique copies now. Essentially what we're doing is we're backing up our files. That's great. Okay, before we end here, let's clean up everything. So let's see. If I do ls here in my documents, I'm going to remove everything that starts with file. All right, so that's all gone. I'm going to remove new arc, that's gone. And I'm going to remove my test playground, right? So remember, to remove a directory, you got to pass the tac R option to recursively remove everything that is in there. So that's good. And I think we got to clean up our desktop too. So let's see, CD, let's go up one. Let's go to my desktop. And I'm going to remove tac R, let's remove that documents folder, and then let's remove that tar. All right, so I think we've essentially cleaned everything up, so we're not leaving any, just files lying around. Excellent. So we've now seen how to compress or uncompress individual files using gzip, or multiple files and directories using tar. We've really only scratched the surface on compression. You may come across compressed file types that you haven't heard of before, and so I would urge you to just do a quick Google search, and you should be able to walk yourself through the process of uncompressing those types of files. I think this is a great place to stop. I look forward to seeing you in our next video.